as for the RSIs, I keep the RSIs because they're a good indication of market strength. When it comes to RSIs, I like to like have aggressive. I don't actually set the lines to these levels. I just intuitively understand them, but I like to use RSI aggressively. Like I have an idea of like the 88 to 92 level, like a very high level, very close to 100. And like if the RSI slips below that after being very high up there, then that's like a similar kind of read to me as like the blue wave crossing below the 60 line. Um, you can definitely, let's see if I can demonstrate this here. Um, so we'll just put it at 90 and just see how this looks here. And you can backtest it yourself, but when you have like aggressive settings on the RSI, such as like 90 and 10, you'll see that like when the RSI crosses like over 10, like see this point right here where the RSI crossed over 10, that was the market bottom right there. And then back up here, like when the RSI would cross below 90, that was typically a correction there. So when the RSI begins to tire out from its extremes, that's a really good indication of market strength leaving. So use the RSIs as a gauge of market strength. And that's a way to read the RSIs that has nothing to do with like using the two of them together. Like there's an RSI and then there's a stochastics here. So there's more to the RSIs than what I just said. But this is like the basic way that I use RSIs. Like I want to see the RSI coming up over around 10 for like confluence on a long, and I want to see the RSI falling below 90 for confluence on a short. So there is value to it. It's another form of confluence. As for I can't remember what did my brother say. Does anyone remember what he said about like the gap? Like if there's a big gap between the RSIs, that means something. I like forgot what he said on that.
Weakness. Yeah, I've
So
heard Trader
very
Geo talk about that. That if there's a big gap between the RSIs, it's a weak move.
Hmm. Well, it's definitely a
But
divergence, right?
I've looked at that on the charts, and to be honest, a lot of the times I don't see it.
It's definitely a divergence. I think um like the RSI moves slower. Like the stochastics tends to pick up the pace and almost like lead the RSI in the dominant direction. I've noticed. The RSI kind of like lags behind. So yeah, sometimes it does diverge greatly. And it's hard for me to like to really agree with that like weak move, strong move when they're together or not. But it is definitely a divergence, like a disagreement between the RSI and the Stokes. Um, so
The
I think
biggest thing I've kind of picked up is like the color. Like when it turns green and they're real tight together, I know like especially in the core strategy, your brother will always be like, RSI is nice and tight. You know, like when one of them's green, I'm guessing that's the normal RSI. That usually indicates a pretty big pump.
so
It seems.
The Stokes turns green when the RSI is above the Stokes. So
Oh, that's it.
take the red and green of the Stokes more as what the RSI is saying. So I know that's like hard to understand, but when the purple line is over the Stokes, then the Stokes are green to indicate that like the RSI, which is like the slower moving, more sure oscillator, is leading. Um,
Mhm.
Whereas when the
Cool.
Stokes are red, that means the RSI is below them. Um, and so I don't use like the red and green as like short on red, long on green. This is not like a green dot type of like indication or anything like that. The red is just saying the RSIs are below the Stokes, and the green is saying that the RSI is above the Stokes. Um, and I think that when they're together, that would imply confluence, and I feel like that would imply um, not a stronger move, but just more confluence. So I would like to see them tightening up toward a bottom. And you see that here. You see like once they meet together, we had a nice little bottom here down here, and then they meet together and then they cross up over 10, and boom, you got your market bottom. Let's see. There's a lot of points where like we crossed below 90 up here. That's why I like to have aggressive settings, because when you set it any lower than 90, it gets a little like choppy. So I like to be like very picky with the RSI. Like if I'm gonna be using the RSIs to get a read on market strength, like I wanna see like immense strength failing on either the bullish or bearish side, if that makes sense.
What settings do you use for your RSIs?
What do you mean? Like when I actually go into like the
Yeah, like in the inputs or in this, like, can you adjust what they are, or they just default for you?
they're just default
Oh, okay.
here.
Okay, cool. Oh, I got it. Okay.
Yeah, but you could set like one of these trigger levels, like at 90, one at 90 and one at 10, if you wanted to have like an actual line there, like helping you gauge the RSIs. I just kind of use my intuition. Like I see the RSIs falling down from that super high level, and that just like I just need to eyeball it. I don't need an actual line there. I would much rather have the default lines at the 60 line, because that is historically like when the blue waves differentiate between normal ranging price action and like runaway train price action. Like I love that 60 line for the blue waves. For instance, like you could see that like once we pass over the 60 threshold on this big wave here, that was like right here. You see how like the market like pumped harder and faster than it ever previously did before. And then when it slipped back below the 60 line, that was like when we had the top there and when the market had lost steam. So I like my 60 and negative 60 lines. Um, but yeah, hopefully that gives you guys a little more clarity on the lesser used oscillators of Market Cipher B.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I love the RSI. Like you said, Market Cipher has like this mystique to it, and the RSI is one of those oscillators that, or maybe it's not an oscillator, it's an RSI, but it's very not well explained in our community in general. So I've spent a lot of time studying it, and I think it's a very good indicator. In fact, I think it's a good indicator for magnitude. If you take, for example, the most on your screen right now on the 12-hour,
Mm-hmm.
the most recent RSI is gapped, but to the upside. So the stochastic is below the purple line, but it's got this large gap. And what I notice is when you have this divergence between the two, whether it's up or down, sure, a lot of the times it can be seen as a sign of current weakness, but those RSIs have to meet equilibrium. They always will. And they either meet equilibrium by the stochastic meeting it or by the RSI going to the stochastic. It has to go one or two ways. And usually that is a very volatile reaction.
Yeah.
So you can see how it played out right there, where your crosshair is.
I
Where
completely see what you're saying. Yeah. No,
yeah,
you're right. When there's a divergence, there's always a reckoning, right? Yeah, you're totally right on that. That's a brilliant observation. If you do ever see a gap, it's probably evidence that some sort of reckoning is happening. Yeah, and it's hard for me to discern whether it's bullish or bearish, and then the green and red thing does kind of throw it off. But just read the green and red as RSI is above or below the Stokes. That's all that's about. And then since it is an oscillator, you said it's not an oscillator. It is an oscillator. It's just there's oscillators that gauge volume, like MFI. There's oscillators that gauge momentum, like the blue and yellow waves, and then there's oscillators that gauge strength, like RSI.
okay.
So, yeah, I feel like that was a pretty comprehensive, like, explanation, and I'm gonna be using the RSI, like, like these things that I said about it. I think, like, I think it's a worthy addition to the oscillator. It doesn't, confuse anything for me. It's just another thing to like I know a lot of YouTubers, like the first thing they do in their tutorials is like turn it off, because CF himself doesn't really use it that much. But I feel like that's just a lack of like our tutorials explaining them. So we gotta do a better job of highlighting the uses of RSI for sure. That's definitely going to be a goal of mine this year, is breaking down MCB in a way that like has never really been done before. Because personally, I don't like when a YouTuber talks about MC in a way that isn't complete, and I think CF is definitely guilty of that. Um, like he, for instance, the way he would talk about Cipher SR is like, I don't use SR at all, and so, like hundreds of or like thousands of people just they want to do what he's doing because his edge is a winning edge, so they would learn basic strategy, but they would say, "Oh, screw Market Cipher SR, like I'm not even going to touch that thing." Whereas I've taken Market Cipher SR and like done great things with it. So yeah, be mindful that YouTubers will like remove certain things or change certain things about Market Cipher, because like they have their edge, and they have every right to do that. Like we all are crafting our own strategies using MC. It's a comprehensive indicator package. It's not, these are not like strategies that have to, where you have to use every aspect of them. It was designed to just be like a grocery list of amazing tools that you can pull from and add things yourself and make your own edge and then build your own community and your own business and all that stuff off of. So use MC as a springboard to craft your own edge and like do everything that you can do with that, like trade with it successfully, share it with other people, teach other people, market it. It's a whole springboard to start like your trading career with. But yeah, I'd just say like, take it with a grain of salt when a YouTuber like says to just remove this aspect of the tool just because it doesn't work for them. It might work for you.